Welcome back to the Her First podcast. Today we're discussing public relations. Public relations in the way that it relates to your brand, your business, how you're showing up in front of people, and ways in which you can start to improve that to not only reach more people, but engage them with your identity, with what it is that you offer, and how you want to bring them into the fold of your business through your offers, your products, your services. So we're going to go ahead and start with the basics. What is public relations? So PR is all about managing how you're seen by the public, what it is that they're viewing about your personal brand or your business as a whole. So it's really about controlling the narrative, the story, the, again, identity of how people are viewing you, the words that they associate with you, how they talk to their friends about you, and what they're going to believe, feel, and think about you in their own minds, which resultantly leads to whether they're going to invest in you or participate in what it is that you offer. So all of us really want to get our name out there more, and we want to figure out ways to do that, leverage our time and our energy so that we're not completely overworking, but that we're actually investing in the right strategies in order to get in front of the people who are going to convert. Reaching 10,000 people in your niche who are going to be dedicated, committed to what you do is a lot more beneficial than reaching 1 million people who have no idea, interest, or are caring about what it is that you offer, the service that you have. So part of PR is about being specific to niche, to industry, and to the values that you align with as a business, as a brand, as a personal representative of what you're bringing to the world. So PR are simply the strategies. So public relations are simply the strategies in which you're using to get in front of those people. It's not necessarily your typical marketing strategies, although there is overlap. So if you're thinking about social media posting, if you're thinking about your website, if you're thinking about how you're showing up in your daily simple tasks and activities, that's not necessarily what we're discussing today. What we're discussing is how you're reaching people outside of your own sphere. So examples of PR can look like getting featured in news media outlets, it's speaking at events, it's collaborations with influencers or other affiliates, it's thinking about how you're creating buzz, how you're getting people talking, and how you're building a reputation around your brand using and leveraging other people's platforms in order to stand out in your industry, in order to demonstrate your expertise and essentially draw people back to your own platforms and your own channels.
When you're starting a business, a lot of people think about your own presence. You might think of your social media, your website, creating your funnels, creating your systems, and all of those things. Some people often only think about your website. We've talked before on this podcast how websites just don't sell, right? And a funnel doesn't sell. You have to do something to get attention and get people to your website, get people to your content, get people to your funnels. And PR is one of the tools in your tool belt as a business owner that you can use to get that attention. So build your systems, build your social media presence, but PR is a strategy that you can use to get that attention. And whenever businesses are getting started, one of the recommendations I have is to pick 2 channels and get really good at them. So after you've built your website, after you've built your funnels, you may say, okay, I want to start driving traffic by appearing on podcasts and growing an Instagram account. Getting podcast gigs is more, and speaking opportunities is a PR strategy, and growing your own Instagram is a more like internal personal marketing strategy. So thinking through what options you have to drive traffic to your business, PR could be one of them. And then we'll dig into the details of ways you can do that today.
And we're encouraging you to have and to do both. Of course, there are those internal strategies that Joanna's talking about that are really critical to having a presence. Where are people going to go after they hear about you from someone else's platform? Usually that's how you capture it. So if you're thinking of your net that you're casting either in the digital space or in person at events, you're thinking about casting that wider net using PR strategies or ways to get in front of people, but then you have to funnel those people back somewhere. You've got to have a bucket in which you're sending them. And so your internal strategies, automations, and systems is that bucket where you're going to capture, you're going to collect, you're going to hold on to, and then move forward from there. And then the net is kind of like the PR strategies. And again, how you're getting in front of more people, because at some point, Quantity is what you're looking for. And you want to be able to cast that net. Thinking again from a niche and industry specific, but also sometimes the wider the better, right? Like if Oprah came up to you and said, "Hey, I'd love to have you on my show," you're not necessarily thinking about her niche or industry. You're going to get on Oprah's show. So, why is PR important, and why should you be thinking about it, considering it, and implementing it on a consistent basis? This isn't like you have to go out and book 10 speaking gigs right off the bat. Each week, how can you implement certain strategies to make sure that you are reaching out to people, you are pursuing this, even if it's gradual? So, public relations really builds your credibility. We've talked about this before, but being able to leverage the trust that someone already has is going to improve the trust that that person has in you. If you ask someone for a recommendation for a brand, a toiletry, a business nearby, something that you're looking for, makeup, you're going to trust the friend who says, "I've used this product before and I really love it." That's buying into or having somebody else's trust by borrowing their platform. So there's a certain level of credibility. If you get featured on a certain podcast, if you speak at a certain event, if you publish a book or have the book forward by someone in particular, that's essentially being able to create more credibility around what other people already know, recognize, and trust. So when people see you in these respected publications, say you get featured in Forbes or are going to speak at a world conference or business summit, that's going to give you credibility, and people are going to see you as someone who's reputable and trustworthy. So, of course, what we're looking for is increasing visibility, being able to reach more people, get in front of more eyeballs. We've talked on the show before about attention being currency. And so your ability to leverage PR strategies is about being more visible, showing up in front of more people, and capturing their attention, which then leads to other opportunities. So if you're doing an unpaid speaking gig to get started, or if you're getting featured on someone's podcast, building the credibility, building the trust, having that visibility can also lead to paid speaking gigs, or it can lead to, "Hey, I'd love you to host a workshop for me," or "I'd love to have you in this other capacity because we've already worked together before." So building those partnerships, building those collaborations becomes a lot easier when you start making those connections and being able to build those relationships. And people really connect at that level in a totally different way if you've demonstrated your expertise and your ability on a larger stage. And then, of course, what I mentioned before in terms of what is PR and what is public relations is that you're essentially working to control your own narrative, control your story as a brand. You get to develop your identity, and you get to define what that looks like by being the one who talks about it, because people are going to talk about you anyway. And it'd be better if you shaped that conversation, whether that's in somebody else's YouTube channel, on a podcast, on a stage, whatever that looks like, in press, media, published features, featured blog articles. It's allowing you to craft your own story as a brand and explain what it is that you do, who you are, what you're offering in a way that aligns with what you want the world to see and know about you.
And it's important, if you're thinking about starting a PR strategy, to really understand what that narrative your company or you as a personal brand want to put out in the world, and also really understand the goal that you have in result of that PR strategy. You could say, "Okay, I want to start a PR strategy. I'm just going to go find podcasts to be on." For example, we have a podcast. For some reason, I've picked that to talk about today as an example. But if you want to go pitch yourself to be on podcasts, you need to know, like, what is the story that you want to tell? What do you want people to know about you? And what's your goal of being on that podcast? That's going to help you find best fit publications. That's going to help you know what to talk about, what your topic should be. That's going to help you figure out what your CTA or your call to action. Where are you sending people next? Because just going on, getting into publications, being in podcasts, getting stories told about you will only be as effective as that strategy that you have behind it. So as we talk about kind of all of this, know that you need to be formulating your company story, your personal brand story, the goal of your PR strategy. Is it to get leads? Is it to get high-end clients? Is it to, you just want the first page of Google to all be stories about you, right? What is that goal? And then you can develop the tactics that are going to get you there.
Absolutely. And we'll go into some very specific things that you can do starting today in order to start to work these strategies, start to build them into your tasks, activities, priorities, and also how to approach it and how to think about this a little bit better. So Thinking of example successful PR strategies, bringing any brand to mind is helpful to think about how they position themselves and they control their narrative. The example I want to give you is Apple. Apple is one of the strongest brands across the globe. It's also one of the most high grossing, high profit businesses in the top 5, top 10, and has been for years. And so Apple has created an identity. And if you've ever thought about this, I mean, you yourself right now, do you use an Android, an iPhone, perhaps something else? And how does that actually shape or how does it fit into your personality? If you're an iPhone user, which I am, I'm an iPhone user, I have Mac, I have been for years and years, and I would never, ever shift. Even if sometimes the features are better with Android, I'm an iPhone person. I identify with the brand, the nature of how they market, the billboards that they use, how they show up in the world, and again, the brand narrative that they're showing. And people want to buy into that. And that's what you're working to do with your own brand is identify who it is that you want to attract and appeal to, and how can you do that? How can you reflect that and represent it? It's one of my favorite sayings in marketing. Simon Sinek says they don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. There are lots of other phone producers out there. There are lots of other computer producers. There are different ways that you can access the same features, the same benefits, the same tools, but people buy the why of the brand. And that's a big part of this conversation is understanding your why. If you haven't yet, go back and listen to the episode on the vision, the mission of your brand, and why that's so important in really solidifying the values of what you bring to the table. And then other examples in our personal brand world, if you think of people, you have Oprah Winfrey, you have Ellen DeGeneres, you have Brendan Burchard, and most people have heard their names. If not Brendan Burchard, because he's predominantly in the business, personal development, high performance coaching world, people are familiar perhaps with their faces and what it is they do in some way, so much so that if they recommend something, people are more likely to trust their recommendation than other nameless faces that they've never heard of before. So thinking about what's affiliated with your face. Do people trust you? Do you have the credibility? And how are you showing up in the way? How are you showing up in that way? So let's go ahead and dive into some strategies in just a moment, how you want your impact to be as a brand. And again, having people trust and believe in what it is that you're saying through these strategies.
And I think when we're thinking about PR, looking at big names, we can really see how that shows up. Oprah Winfrey recommends a book. Everybody buys it. Does she do her still do her favorite things? Remember Oprah Winfrey's favorite things where she would list out her favorite things and then they would sell out everywhere? That's a thing that happens.
That's the PR. That is that in effect. And you don't see it, but if we were to take one example like Oprah Winfrey, and maybe we should do this on an actual podcast episode, it would be kind of cool to break down very specific examples, but see all of the ways in which they show up. Yeah, she has a show or did have a show, but what are all of the ways in which she's being seen on other people's shows, in news media outlets, online, through her website, through her books, through content, through all of these. This sphere of influence, this web, is the PR. It's not just one thing or one channel.
And I think this also happens on the micro level too. And I think likely your business is going to be somewhere between Oprah Winfrey and this micro level. Because if you think about your local community, I'm a mom. I go to school drop off every morning, right? We talk to each other, we chat. Your recommendations from a person to person level have clout with certain people and certain community members. And you have personal PR. People talk about what you do, who you are. This happens on a community sort of micro level. It happens at the Oprah Winfrey scale, and it happens at every level in between. So there's a range of how this is, but your reputation, how people see you, how people connect with you really affect your ability to do business.
And on a deeper level, it's a representation of your brand and again, your identity and how you're showing up. If you rolled it all the way back to the basics, you're thinking about what kind of car do you drive? What type of clothes do you wear? How do you show up? Do you wear makeup? How do you do your hair? What are you presenting to the world so that people can see you and honestly make snap judgments? Because we have to think from a consumer's perspective or from a buyer psychology or from just human interpretation. We are making snap judgments all the time. And so we sometimes have to be really intentional about how we craft those and how people respond to us in that instantaneous moment of seeing, hearing, or identifying, hearing, seeing, or being informed in some way about who you are and what your business does and your brand. So let's go ahead and go into components of a pitch and how to actually position yourself for these opportunities. And then we will share some resources in terms of where to find these opportunities and how to get in front of, again, industry specific, niche specific, or reach out to those brands, those businesses who are going to be good opportunities for you so that you're not really wasting energy or wasting time on those things that maybe don't align with what you want, what you're doing, what you're here to offer. So, simple components of a pitch, really important when you're reaching out. Usually, I would say the best thing to do is either have an understanding of the brand, the business, the audience that they have, the outlet that they are, what it is that they focus on. You never want to go in blind, just like you would a job interview. Don't not do research about the company. You should understand the type of company that you're applying to, how big the company is, what their challenges are, responsibilities of the role. Like there has to be some preparation. So if you're pitching a podcast, for example, listen to a couple episodes of the podcast. Look at the titles. What type of guests do they feature? What are they talking about? How can you bring value to what it is that they are doing? Same thing with blog articles. Same thing with news and media outlets is like you have to bring some sort of value and understand what they're doing in the world and how they're accomplishing that. So, super basic. Who are you? Introduce yourself. Be strong. I think that a lot of times we hold back those things that are really great about us right up front for some reason because there's some sort of humbleness or humility that has to come along with us, especially as women. We often feel uncomfortable really highlighting those things that we're good at, but show that expertise in the introduction right up front because people are, again, it's going to be short, it's going to be concise. You got to get to the point. So, who are you? What do you offer? So, what are you pitching them? Is it the product? Is it the service? Is it the expertise or the value that you're going to be adding? And why are you the person to do it? So, if you are specifically pitching a podcast episode, opportunity that you think would be really valuable for them, why are you the person to be able to do that? How does it solve their problem? And what sort of experience are you bringing to the table that is going to convince them that this is something that they can pay attention to and learn a little bit more about? So, how does what you're doing align with the goals of their business, their brand, and their audience and what they're doing here?
So I haven't even told you this yet, Michelle, but we got on some sort of list of podcasts that this one company keeps pitching people to be on our podcast. My email address got on it. And this one guy sends me about 3 a week of you should have this person on your podcast. And I delete all of them. I humored the first one and it was sort of a disaster. And then because it was the first one, I thought, oh, cool, this is cool. And then I get another one and another one and another one and another one. And it is so clear from the communication that they do not know what our podcast is about. The people they're pitching, the way they're talking about it. So it's probably some company that people hire them to get pitched for podcasts. And I'm just getting these copy paste emails that I can tell were sent to literally 100 podcasts. And they're not specific at all. They're not saying, they're saying this is what they can talk about, but they're not connecting it to our audience and what we're about. That is not a good pitch. That doesn't make me want to open it. That doesn't make me want to meet with someone. That doesn't make me want to have them on their podcast. I would want to know things like what specific topics do they have? How does it connect to your audience? You could say, I haven't heard you talk about XYZ topic, so I can come talk about this topic. I have this many followers. I will share it. When I've gone on other podcasts, I was able to get this many downloads. Like really pitch me and specifically me and make it specific to me. So I see the connection. Don't make me do that work if you're pitching to me. I delete all of them because it's just so not relevant in the way I'm being pitched.
Absolutely. I get pitches too. And it just depends. I kind of got to filter through. Some are totally generic, bland, uninteresting, and unrelated, especially with some of the guests that they're pitching. And then there are some people, like we have a founder booked for filming next week of Taja Collective. And that is a female founded brand. It's a candle company and they do some other things. But in it, they approached me in terms of what we do here on Her First. And they liked, certain aspects of what we do and talked about those things. And then they told me a little bit of story background of the founder and, what that would look like if we had that conversation. And a lot of times I'm actually looking for an example. So, thinking on the other side of it, as someone who is being pitched, what does that person want to know? How is it going to, again, help them or provide some sort of value to what it is that you're doing? Because it is helpful if you can pitch yourself. So, if there's any mindset that you have, it's that it's going to be a bother. Oh my gosh, I don't want to just be deleted. Is one, think about the brand and the integrity that you're bringing to the table. Because when I read that pitch, I'm also judging your brand. And so if you want to have good ethical, integrity-based practices, then be authentic and represent yourself in that way. But know that the pitch is also helpful to me. If I don't have to go and look for guests, that makes my life easier. So it's actually a positive thing if you can bring something to the table. But then don't be discouraged if you get no's. You're going to get a lot of no's, and that's okay. That's part of the process. So thinking about how you're kind of tailoring your pitch as we're talking about this and how you're thinking about reaching out to people and who you're going to potentially work with. So there's a few different things that I want to talk about, one of which is media. So when I talk about media, this could be anything from TV, actual video, news, like big time stuff. It could be blogs that have really great traffic, and you're going to be a featured guest article that you're creating for them. It could be podcasts. It could be other like digital news outlets or printed features, and you're pitching them in that way. So thinking creatively about what that looks like from a media perspective, they're telling a story. They're typically looking for something that has something of note and that's usually trending, right? If you think about headlines, news stories, anything that people are like pushing, promoting, pop culture, science or health-based things, anything political, like you're looking for headlines and you're looking for things that are relevant to the time, to now, to trends, what's occurring. And so thinking about what it is that you're talking about, what your expertise is, again, your products, your service, what you're bringing to the world, how does it relate to newsworthy trending content? So thinking about it from that perspective. And when you pitch, you can provide data, testimonials, unique angles that maybe you're not seeing commonly, but that approaches the topic, the niche, the trend from a little bit of a different opinion-based perspective, which is what people are looking for. There's a lot of people want to be cutting edge isn't the best term, but people want to be controversial. They want to share things that's going to make people stop the scroll and get their attention. So if you have something to offer that is of value at that level, it's really important to highlight it in a big way. Now, when you're thinking about collaborators, things are a little bit different. So say, for example, you want to reach out to another Instagram account because you guys want to do a collaboration with a reel or a post and leverage their platform in order to reach their audiences. So you're bringing some sort of value, expertise, creating part of the content, and then you're leveraging their platform. And so that would be a collaborator. So when seeking out that type of partnership, I want you to think less about the newsworthiness, less about the trending, and more again about how it's clearly going to benefit their audience. Again, I'm looking for guests on the podcast. You are going to be a benefit to me by me not having to find you, but you also have to bring some sort of expertise, some sort of conversation to the table that's going to help our audience, our listeners, the people that we reach on social media. It's got to provide some sort of value. So thinking about how it's a win-win relationship and opportunity for them. So whether that is just the value, the expertise, whether that is you have key resources that you're specifically going to share with them, or if it's some sort of exchange. So if you are collaborating with them because they have a bigger Instagram presence, but you actually have a larger email list or you have a pretty significant email list, then you're offering that exchange of value and how they're going to get to leverage your email list in order to be successful. So 2 different ways that you're pitching, but thinking about them differently so that they're curated for what it is that you're trying to accomplish and who you're speaking to.
Yeah. And when you're thinking, I think we've talked a lot about messaging and making sure you understand the platform, but also if you can glean from their stuff, their goals and what you pitch helps them achieve their goals in an easy way, well, that's going to go really far. As an example, if you're trying to be a guest blogger on some big website, and you might not even have an audience to provide, but you might be talking to a marketing manager who has to get out 8 new blogs a month, and they're like stressed and they have a tight marketing budget. And if you say to them, hey, I'd love to write one blog post for you a month, as long as you share it and link to my website, they might be so happy because they're struggling to get that content, right? So if you can try to understand that person you're pitching's goals and you can provide an easy solution that helps them achieve their goals, they're going to be really really happy because they're getting a task checked off their list. So making it clear how easy you're going to be to work with. If maybe you want to try to collaborate with someone much bigger than you on social media. But if you say like, "Hey, I'll write the scripts, I'll edit the videos, I'll create the content. This is all you've got to do." They might be like, "Sure, like sign me up. I just have to show up or I just have to click post. If you make it really easy for me, then I'll do it."
Your PR is essentially a representation of you selfishly wanting to get out in the world. But it has to come from a compassionate, connected, and aligned place because you're building relationships, you're building community, you're establishing partnerships and opportunities that might become so much more in the future. So you want to approach it with ethics, with integrity, and with an ability to say, like, this is how I can benefit you. You always want to think from that perspective, is that we're always kind of trying to honestly we're always focused on ourselves. We're always focused on building our brands and our businesses. And so if you can kind of use that to your benefit and say, okay, if I can get myself outside of myself and I can start to think about it from their perspective, then I'm going to be much more successful at this instead of worrying about me and my situation and how I'm going to reach people. It's like the opportunities will be endless if you think in a more generous way with what you're offering and how you're showing up, which the note that I want to have here before we go into some real life examples is that you may think that, doing this isn't worth it. But when you're thinking about building a long-term business or career in this space, and especially as a personal brand, getting featured in these places and having the reach is only part of that. But having the backlinks and building the SEO and building the strength of your brand where someone sees you featured in one place and then another is really helpful in, again, building that trust, building that authority, building that credibility, and opening up opportunities. I've been reached out to for certain opportunities because they saw me in another outlet. Even if that initial outlet didn't lead to sales or conversions or growing my following, the second did. So just opening up yourself to what that looks like and how it can help and support you, especially over the long term, and then not getting tied too much to the results or the outcome of each of those things. So, some real life examples of how this has been used specifically in my business. In my online businesses, it's a lot of podcast interviews, it's a lot of, getting featured in different memberships and things like that. But for my physical product business, this has looked really successful this year, partly because we have a really unique and niche product. And so that tends to attract people to us. But it has also taken my pitching. And so in the resources, I'll tell you some of the tools that I use. And people ask me and actually do literally, I know people are like, oh, people are always asking me, like, people literally ask me, like, how did you land this opportunity? Or like, why are you getting featured here? Or like, how did this happen? And it's because, yes, we have a great brand identity. Yes, we have an amazing product, but I also do take the initiative to reach out and make these things happen. So even though sometimes things take time, I'm still the one who's reaching out, making the contact, pitching the product, and pitching myself in that way because these opportunities don't just fall into your lap. I want you to know that it does take work in order to make them happen. So for TBH, what we've seen is we've had some features in some like local places and then some larger places. So Edible Slow is one. It's a digital and print magazine. And so we did have an initial feature in as a free thing. And then we decided to do like a spread and a paid thing with them. The free thing I feel like actually did better for us. So just a learning opportunity, but local newspaper. I know that sounds silly, but we actually got a significant amount of sales because I can track them from that referral. So we did a great featured news story just about getting started, our business and our brand. And sometimes people look at those things and it's like, oh, it's so silly. Like, what's the point? But it not only can lead to sales, but it also, again, puts you in front of other people that builds other opportunities. So take advantage, seize those chances. We've worked with industry related influencers. So looking at people in the sober curious community and the mocktail community and using their platforms and either having them create for us or doing partnerships or collaborations so that we can reach their audiences. Doing niche specific podcasts, again, pitching the alcohol tipping point, no proof, like these other podcasts that are specifically talking to the people who are interested in our product and what it is that we offer, and being able to land those simply because I reached out and said, hey, this is my story. This is what we do. I'd love to be a guest on your podcast to talk about these topics. And so the reason that these all happened, let me know the last one. Blah, blah, blah. And then the biggest one is with Proof Magazine. And so this was, again, something that I pitched. It turned into a 4-page spread in their digital and print magazine, which was amazing, about the no to low alcohol industry. And based off of that working relationship, they want me to contribute on a regular basis, which is very exciting. And so this all happened, and these opportunities are in place because I reached out about them, because I pitched myself, because I said, here's how it relates to what you're doing. This is the story. This is the personalization that I'm appealing to you and how it's going to benefit your audience, your people, your demographics, and really just kind of aligning at the right time for myself, for the brand, and the right time for them. There's going to be lots of pitches that you do that maybe aren't good at this particular moment, but that doesn't mean that there's not opportunity for the future.
Well, first, congratulations. Those are some amazing, huge opportunities to put on your list for 2024 accomplishments. It's just a great feeling to go out there, put yourself on the line, and get those opportunities, and then see the traction and the sales that can bring. And one of the things you said really early on kind of talking through what you've been doing for TBH is you said we have a very niche specific product. And one of the things I hear all of the time talking to business owners is some people are very, very scared to serve a very specific niche. And they're really scared of it because they think, oh, I'm going to limit my sales opportunities. But a lot of times when you serve a very specific niche, you actually increase your PR opportunities. When you do something really specific, there's going to be someone looking for your insight on that, right? When you have this very specific thing and there's not a lot of you doing what you're doing, you're going to get to the top of the line on some of those really unique opportunities. And it can actually put you in a position where later on in your business, you can expand and broaden your niche, but you might start with a smaller niche to get those really specific opportunities. And as your PR grows, you can expand your offerings and maybe be a little less niche. Maybe you don't be less niche. You don't have to. I'm not saying that. But getting that specific small audience will eventually lead to bigger opportunities.
Thank you. We're pretty excited. I think things are moving along in a really positive direction, but it also doesn't mean that I'm stopping the outreach. I think a lot of times we get hooked on one opportunity, and I've been guilty of this in the past, is saying like, oh, this is great. I'm going to be featured in this podcast. I'm going to do this presentation in this membership. And then I'm like, good. But we've talked about this on the podcast before, is we've always got to be filling that pipeline, which means that these types of pitches should be a part of your weekly reach outs, right? These are the activities that you're doing on a consistent basis. It's not just like, oh, I'm going to reach out to these 10 podcasts. I'm going to be booked on these 10 podcasts, and that's enough. No, you're probably not going to hear back from some of them. Some of them are going to be like, not right now. Some of them are going to be like, maybe, but it takes several months. Or you're going to even do an interview and it won't come out for 2 or 3 months. So just knowing that this is a process that takes time, it's got to build momentum, and you're going to continuously be doing this work. So focus on the steps, the activities that you're doing on a consistent basis rather than investing everything in the outcome, again, of what it is that you're focused on and doing. So here's a couple of resources that I want to provide you. If you haven't heard of them yet, they're great tools to kind of give it to you. There's a way to just start with Google. Google your specific niche or industry. Look at what comes up, whether that's blogs, media outlets that talk about your content, whether it's like just platforms that have information or referrals or references, whether that's influencers, YouTubers, like you can find a lot online. Google Podcasts or go into Spotify, Apple, look at podcasts that are specifically on your topic or your niche, and you can start to list those things out. And that's a really great way to kind of think quantity. Like, I'm going to list out 100 podcasts that I could potentially be on, and I'm going to pitch 5 every single week or 10 every single week. And so you can kind of start to do that more gradually. But then there's a couple of places where journalists, publications, people are actively seeking experts, referrals, sources, quotes for what it is that they're doing. And I started using this tool several years ago and have used it to get on Human Window, Trusty Spotter, Pop Sugar, and some other really notable online places where I've contributed as an expert and then been quoted and linked back to my content, my website, my products, and my programs. So Haro, Haro, is Help a Reporter Out. So it's simply a platform where journalists post requests for sources. So you get an email, you can choose how often in what industry or niche specific that you want to do, and it'll give you typically the platform, the person, what it is that they're looking for specifically, and then how and what to pitch about. So being able to utilize a platform like that, sending to you, hey, I'm looking for this source. If you specifically talk about restorative yoga practices, I need 5 restorative yoga practices for helping manage stress relief. Pitch. It's really a timeliness thing. Like you've got to be able to turn around, but a lot of opportunities come from just having that thoughtfulness and being able to pitch appropriately to what it is that they're looking for. Quoted is similar, a little bit different in how I feel like I've connected with different types of agencies, journalists, and professionals who are looking for, again, experts in a specific area, whether that is just a simple quote, whether it is to answer questions or sometimes do an interview. Like I think I did, it was either a video interview or something similar with someone looking for someone in the yoga space at the time. And so there are opportunities that come about, again, based on people who are seeking out and looking for people in a certain area. So finding Haro, Quoted, or other kind of PR listings or opportunities, you can always Google them. And then simply like thinking from that trend perspective, not only is this good for your content creation and your internal strategies, but setting up something like Google Alerts around a specific topic or idea can help you generate more relevant trending pitches for the people that you're approaching. So if you are thinking about doing a podcast pitch, having a Google Alert pop up that says, our mocktails, having a Google Alert with a headline that pops up is like, our mocktails out and zero proof is in. That could be something that I pitch the potential media outlet podcast host in terms of content that's related to, again, what's trending, what's happening right now, and what people care about.
When I hear you talking through how to go about this and how to look at this, it just makes me think the importance of this is a strategy, right? This is a recurring work you're going to do if you choose to make this part of your business strategy. If you're a solopreneur and you're starting on your own, you might think, I need to do these 25 things. Like I said earlier in the podcast, you're going to pick 2 and do them really, really, really well. And then as your business grows and you can build on a team, you can add on more and more strategies. One day you'll do all of the things, but when you're getting started, really pick 2 to really think about strategically. Because when you see other businesses and you're like, how did they get that podcast? How did they get that article? How did they get that 4-page spread like Michelle? When you think about that, you don't see the work that goes into it. You don't see the research, the pitching. You don't see the 100 pitches that nobody read. You see the one that got her the job or the opportunity. So just remember that you have to think strategically about it. You have to make a plan. You have to do the work to get the opportunities. But I also think with PR, unlike some other things, PR will likely have one opportunity can get you another and make that second opportunity easier. So when you do all that front work, it's going to get easier and easier to pitch, because if you become a source for a reporter and they write about your topic and to your niche a lot, you're a source for them once. You are easy to work with. You are quick to respond. You did all of the things that they needed. Next time they need someone to talk about your topic, if they remember you, they're just going to ask you directly. You'll start to get inbound requests, but you have to get the opportunities first for those to come in.
Yeah, and we definitely don't wanna sugarcoat it. Like, this is not something that is just a one and done. It's not something where you're gonna land the high, top, whatever opportunities right out the gate, and that's okay. Just like anything, it's a part of the process. Just like social media posting, you're not gonna just post once and have a slew of clients. You're gonna work on it. You're gonna put the time and energy into it. And would I suggest public relations as your first step if you're just starting a business? Absolutely not. But as you evolve in your business and as you want to grow and be recognized as a brand, these are really great things to do. If you want to fly under the radar and just be like, I just want to run my ads, post simple social media content, like I don't really want to get that big, I don't need to be featured on these places, then that's okay too. And recognizing and identifying that's where you are in your business and that's how you're going to build your brand. But these are really tools and strategies that can help you grow. If you want to be a published author, you've got to have that following. You've got to make that connection. You've got to have collaborative partners because when you launch that book, guess what? Who are you going to turn to help share the book? You've got to be able to leverage again those relationships that you're building, and you never know what that's going to turn into in the future. Also knowing that the business that you're working on right now might not be your forever business. You might start something different, totally different in the future. And what are you going to do then? Think about leveraging those relationships, leveraging those opportunities, that network, and public relations builds that, as well as, again, building the trust, credibility, and authority behind your name. Because, again, if you change your business, maybe you had a service based business before, moving into a physical product business or vice versa, but your brand identity, your face is trusted, respected, and has credibility. Guess how much easier building that next brand is going to be? Huge, totally impactful. So, we have some recommendations looking for tools and resources to kind of help and support you. And again, thinking small, taking this kind of one thing at a time. There are lots of courses out there that are really affordable or sometimes free, depending on like promotions and resources on platforms like Coursera, Udemy, LinkedIn Learning, actually, that really focus on PR branding and pitching as a whole. So if you feel like you need more steps and more of a breakdown, just searching out those resources. Like, don't go pay $10,000, $5,000, $3,000 to a coach to take you through this process, even though that's going to feel really appealing. Like, start small, figure it out. And then once you get to a certain level, like if you want to hire an agent for booking gigs or a public relations team to help you with this process. But Joanna actually brought it up earlier. And there's a huge lack of personalization that can come from certain companies you employ. So either make sure that they know your brand, support your brand, and are going to represent you well. Because again, my receiving a pitch is going to affect how I see you and how I see your business and your brand. And having that alignment with how you want to show up in the world is really important. So either hiring the teams who have that affinity for what it is that you're doing and really represent that well, or just waiting until you can kind of get some things underneath you and you understand the process and know what you're looking for and how you want to approach public relations. So, the last thing that I want you to start thinking about is exactly that network. So, I want you to start building your media contact list or some sort of CRM tool or way that you're tracking the opportunities that you've been given. How can you nurture and leverage those relationships over time? And how can you contribute to them? What is it that they're looking for? Can you refer them to another expert, another coach, another creator that is also going to be of benefit to them and provide value? Can you make a connection with a business that's going to help support them, whether that's a service or an agency that you trust? There's a lot of opportunity to be able to have, again, that win-win, that mutual respect, that relationship that you build and cultivate over time, because that can blossom and flourish into so much than you even realize. Even friendships, like connecting with people on a deeper level and showing up again authentically as yourself and really caring about your business, how you show up in your world, your brand, and caring about theirs as well, because they have that top of mind. So being able to connect on that deeper level is really important here. So whether that's journalists, bloggers, influencers, other online businesses, agencies, service providers, just think about how you can kind of track these relationships. Take notes on them, just like you would as a salesperson. You have the business, you have the name, you have notes of when you spoke, what you talked about, what the opportunity was, what it is that they're looking for, the goals that they're hoping to accomplish as a business or brand, maybe some personal things as well, their family, where they live, what's important to them. Because it may seem silly and it may seem also like, oh, I'm not going to approach it from such a structured, organized way. That's inauthentic. But really, just those little things can help you prepare so much more effectively for those continued conversations. And it really does benefit yourself, your business, your brand, but also theirs over time. And that's what we're really looking for, is like figuring out this give and take relationship so that we can create a better world, create better media, create better content, create better businesses, create better programs and products that we're offering up to people. And I think the best way to do that is through community, through collaboration, and working together. So we're hoping that those PR strategies were helpful for you. If you have any questions, shoot us a DM on Instagram and hit subscribe. If you felt like this was helpful, please share it with a friend, a fellow business bestie, in order to help encourage them to pursue public relations or give them a few tools and strategies in order to get started. All right, we'll see you next time.